Welcome back to Little English Studio, the channel where history, music, and storytelling come alive in clear English. Today, we dive into the life of one of the greatest musicians the world has ever known. A man whose trumpet could make you dance, whose voice could make you smile, and whose music broke down barriers across race and culture. His name is Louis Armstrong, but to millions, he was simply Satchmo or Pops. This is the full story of the man who became the heartbeat of jazz. Louis Armstrong was born on August 4, 1901, in New Orleans, Louisiana. His family was extremely poor. His father left when he was young, and his mother struggled to support him. He grew up in a neighborhood so rough it was called the battlefield. As a child, Louis worked odd jobs to survive, selling coal, delivering newspapers, and collecting junk. Yet in the middle of hardship, there was something magical in his world. Music. New Orleans at the start of the 20th century was bursting with sound. Brass bands marched through the streets. Jazz, blues, and ragtime filled the air. Louis listened, absorbed, and dreamed. When he was about 11 years old, Louis got into trouble. On New Year's Eve, he fired his stepfather's pistol in the street. The police arrested him, and he was sent to the colored waifs' home for boys. It might have seemed like punishment, but in fact, it was a blessing. At the home, Louis joined the band. He was given a cornet to play. For the first time, he felt the power of music in his hands, in his breath, in his heart. It was the beginning of a lifelong journey. After leaving the waifs' home, Louis practiced his horn constantly. He followed local musicians, listening, copying, and learning. One of his biggest heroes was King Oliver, a master cornet player. Louis played in small clubs, parades, and on riverboats that traveled the Mississippi River. These years were his training ground. He learned how to read music, how to improvise, and how to lead a band. By 1922, his dream came true. King Oliver invited him to join his band in Chicago. It was a big step. Chicago was becoming the new center of jazz, and Louis Armstrong was about to shine. In Chicago, Armstrong amazed audiences with his skill. His sound was bright, powerful, and full of joy. He could hit high notes like no one else. He could play fast runs that made listeners cheer. And more than anything, he could improvise, creating melodies on the spot, turning every song into something new. In 1925, Armstrong began recording with his own group, the Hot Five, and later the Hot Seven. These records changed jazz forever. Songs like West End Blues showed not just technical brilliance, but deep emotion. His opening trumpet solo on West End Blues became one of the most famous moments in jazz history. Through these recordings, Armstrong transformed jazz from group improvisation into a stage for soloists. He made the individual voice central to jazz. From then on, jazz would be about personal expression, not just collective sound. But Armstrong was not only a trumpet player. He had another gift, his voice. Louis Armstrong's singing was unique, gravelly, rough, but full of warmth. At first, people laughed. His voice was so unusual that it didn't sound like singing in the traditional sense. But soon, audiences fell in love with it. He popularized a style called Scat singing, using nonsense syllables instead of words, turning the voice into an instrument. Songs like Heebie-Jeebies introduced Scat to the world. Later, his recordings of What a Wonderful World, La Vie en Rose, and Hello Dolly made his voice legendary. His singing carried joy, humor, and humanity. He made people feel good, and that, perhaps, was his greatest gift. By the 1930s and 1940s, Louis Armstrong was not just a jazz musician, he was a star. He appeared in films, toured across America, and later around the world. But fame came with challenges. America at that time was deeply segregated. Armstrong, as a black musician, faced racism constantly. He often could not stay in the hotels where he performed. He had to enter through back doors, even while white audiences adored his music. Still, Armstrong's personality shone. He was always smiling, always spreading warmth. His nickname, Satchmo, came from satchel mouth, a reference to his wide grin. People called him Ambassador Satch because he represented the joy of American jazz everywhere he went. In the 1950s and 1960s, Armstrong became an international icon. He toured in Europe, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. At a time when the United States was locked in the Cold War, Armstrong's music served as cultural diplomacy. He played in front of kings and presidents, but also in villages and small towns. Everywhere he went, he brought the same message: joy through music. His trumpet needed no translation. He once said, "I never tried to prove nothing, just wanted to give a good show. My life has always been my music. It always came first. But the music ain't worth nothing if you can't lay it on the public." Although Armstrong often tried to stay away from politics, there were moments when he spoke out. In 1957, during the Civil Rights Movement, he publicly criticized President Eisenhower for not doing enough to protect black children integrating schools in Arkansas. It was a bold move, and some criticized him for speaking out. But Armstrong showed that behind the smile, he was deeply aware of injustice. In his later years, Armstrong continued to perform, even as his health declined. He recorded one of his most beloved songs in 1967, "What a Wonderful World." With its simple lyrics and tender delivery, the song captured Armstrong's philosophy. Despite struggles, despite hardship, life is still beautiful. The green trees, the red roses, the skies of blue, the friends shaking hands, it was all part of his belief in the goodness of life. The song was not a big hit in the US at first, but in time it became an anthem of hope. Today it is one of the most recognized and cherished songs in the world. Louis Armstrong passed away on July 6, 1971, in New York City at the age of 69. The world mourned, but his music never stopped. Louis Armstrong left a legacy larger than life. He recorded thousands of songs, played concerts across the globe, and inspired generations of musicians. But his true legacy lies in what he gave to the world: joy, hope, and the spirit of jazz. He transformed jazz into an art form centered on individual creativity. He showed that music could cross boundaries of race, language, and culture. And he became a symbol of resilience, a poor boy from New Orleans who rose to become a global icon. As Duke Ellington, another jazz giant, once said, "Louis Armstrong was born poor, died rich, and never hurt anyone on the way." That is perhaps the best summary of his life. This was the life story of Louis Armstrong, the boy from New Orleans who picked up a trumpet, and with it, changed the sound of the world. Thank you for listening to Little English Studio. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more English storytelling about the people and events that shaped our world. Because music, like history, is not only about the past, it is about the lessons and the joy we carry into the future.